We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Dalet Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 94a. On the previous summit, the Gemara says that if a shepherd says to a known thief that we are in such and such a place, and kach v'kach gavri ika bahadon, we have the following people with us. Kach v'kach kalbi ika bahadon, we have the following dogs with us. Kach v'kach zuksa psikolon, we have the following slings with us. The ozal v'shakal minei, and then the thief goes ahead and he steals from them. So what's the halacha in such a situation? Amar Lei said to him, Hare holichon l'makam gedudei chayav v'listim. That's the equivalent of taking the animals to a place where you know there are wild animals, you know there are robbers, and therefore the shepherd is responsible for doing so. Rashi explains, Kach v'kach anoshim imanu b'makam shanu rom sham. He tells the known thief that we have the following people with us. We're shepherding over there. V'im tavo ligzol tamas. If you try to steal from us, you're going to die. And zuksa is kloim hamekalim be'evin. That's a slingshot that you sling the stones. Psikolon psuko sukavua salenu lios imanu b'chol yom. We have these with us every day. And so the response was, if that's what the shepherd tells the thief, Hare holichon, it's the same thing as basically taking the animals over to the area where there are wild animals and robbers. Shehizkir lo hamakam shehabei mosham. He mentioned the exact place where the animals are. V'hisio lavo al yedei shegitfu, and basically he incited him to come and try to steal the animals, which is exactly what the thief does, and therefore the shepherd is responsible. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Masna shomer chinam lios pater mishvua. A shomer chinam is allowed to make a condition that he should be exempt from an oath, meaning to say normally a shomer chinam would take an oath that he was not negligent, etc., but he can make a condition that he doesn't want to take any oath. V'hashoa lios pater milashalim. Similarly, a borrower who's generally responsible to pay for everything, he can make a condition that he's going to be pater from paying. And no say sacher v'hasocher, when it comes to a shomer sacher and socher, sometimes they take an oath, sometimes they're responsible. They can also make conditions, lios petur and mishavua, to be exempt from taking the oath, and milashalim, and to be exempt from paying. And then the Mishnah says, Kol hamasnal mashakasa b'Torah tano batel. Anybody who makes a condition against something written in the Torah, the tanai, that condition is nullified, that tanai is not effective. V'chol tanai sheyesh ma'isa b'tchilaso tano batel. Anytime you have a tanai where the action is mentioned first, we'll see Rashi in a moment, that kind of condition is also nullified. V'chol she'efshar lo l'kaimo b'sofo v'hisna imo mitchilaso. If you have something which it's possible to fulfill, and you make that condition, meaning the condition has to be something that is possible for the person to do, to know kaim, that kind of condition is considered to be a good condition. And Rashi explains, Kol hamasnal mashakasa b'Torah. It said in the Mishnah, anyone who makes a condition against what's written in the Torah, it's not a good tanai, even though the previous lines of the Mishnah seem to say you could make such a condition. So Rashi says, B'Gemar mefarish lahu, the Gemara will explain that. Kol tanai sheyesh bo ma'isa b'tchila. So any condition, if the action is mentioned first, what that means is, shehiktim ma'isa she'olav lasos l'tanai shu sho'ol mimenu. What's happening is one person is telling another person, I'm going to do something for you if you fulfill the following condition. Now, if he says what he's going to do first, and then he says the condition, that's when it's no good. Kagon, for example, Hare ma'isa zeh shelecha im ta'asa davar ploni. This will be for you. I'm going to do this for you if you do the following thing. That is not good. The if you do has to come first. The lo dami l'tanai b'nei gad u'b'nei Ruven, because if you have the ma'isa first, that's not similar to the condition that was made by b'nei gad and b'nei Ruven. That was the condition they made, that if they go and they help in the war effort, then they will get the land. The condition part was stated first. It says im yavru unesatem. If you go across and you cross over the river in order to fight the war, so then you're going to get this particular land. Hainu tanai kodem l'maisa. That essentially means the condition was stated before the action. Im ta'asa li hadavar hazeh. If you do for me this thing, ashuva eretz oncha, then I'm going to shepherd your flock. Hainu tanai shashoel mimenu kodem l'maisa shalav lasos. So there you have the condition mentioned, which he's requesting. The condition is mentioned first before the action, which is going to be done. That's the idea. You always have to have the tanai kodem lamaisa. If the maisa is bitchilaso, then the tana batal, the tanai is nullified. V'have maisa mekoim. What actually happens then is you discount the tanai entirely, and the action is fulfilled. V'yafal bishalokayim bal hatanai satanai. Even though the person who's supposed to do the condition doesn't fulfill the condition, that's irrelevant. The condition part is batal, and the maisa itself, the action itself, is going to be effective. V'chol tanai she'efshar lo l'kaimo tano kaim. If you have a condition which is possible to fulfill, that is a good condition. Meaning, im tano kodem l'maisu. If it's formulated in the proper way, where the tanai is stated before the maisa, so then it's going to be a good condition. Ha'iyafshar l'kaimo. Now, let's say it would be a condition that's really impossible to do. Tano batal. Such a tanai is nullified. That's not a good tanai. And again, v'ha'maisa kaim. But the action is then going to be considered to be effective regardless of the Tanai. The Gemara will explain this. And the Gemara says, Amai, why is it that in the first cases of the Mishnah, let's say a Shomer Chinam can say he's exempt from Shavua. A Shoel can say he's exempt from paying. Why is that possible? Masnal Mashakasa B'Toru, that's a condition against what's written in the Torah. V'chala Masnal Mashakasa B'Torah, to know batal, anyone who makes a condition against what is written in the Torah, that condition is nullified. So why is this condition effective in the first lines of the Mishnah? And the Gemara answers, Hamani, who's the author of the first lines of the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda. It's Rabbi Yehuda. Diamar b'davar shebemamon to know kaim. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's something that has to do with money, if it's a monetary issue, you actually can make a condition against what is written in the Torah. The condition is fulfilled, and that's exactly what's happening over here. And the Gemara says, Detanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Homer liisha hareat mekudeshes li al manas she'in lachalai she'er ksus viona. Person says to a woman, you are mekudeshes to me, and the condition is that there's no responsibility of she'er ksus viona. Now, she'er and ksus, those are monetary obligations. Ona is the responsibility for having relations. That is not a monetary obligation. So the first opinion is all of these conditions, harezu mekudeshes, utano batal, it's a good kiddushin, and the conditions, none of the conditions are fulfilled. They're all considered nullified, meaning to say it's just a good kiddushin, and it's an unconditional kiddushin. Those conditions are nothing because you're trying to make a condition against what is written in the Torah. There is a responsibility in kiddushin of she'er ksus viona. You're trying to remove that responsibility. You can't do that. Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. But Rabbi Yehuda says, B'davar shebemamun, anything that has to do with money, meaning she'er and ksus, the responsibility to provide for the wife the food and the clothing, there to know kayim. That condition actually is fulfilled, and therefore he can say that we're going to have a kiddushin on condition that I'm not responsible, she'er ksus. That condition actually will be effective, and he will not be responsible to provide food and clothing in that case, but he's still responsible for the ona, because again, it's only by davar shebemamon that the condition is effective. Rashi says, b'davar shebemamon she'er ksus. When we're talking about the she'er ksus, again, there we say, according to Rabbi Yehuda, to know kayim, that the condition is effective. But the Gemara continues, but can you really say our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda? And you must say, look at the end of the Mishnah, look at the very next line. Kol hamasnal mashakasa b'Torah, to know batal, anyone who makes a condition against what's written in the Torah, that tanai is nullified. Asan Rabbi Meir, that sounds like we're following Rabbi Meir, that the condition is no good at all. It does not sound like we're following Rabbi Yehuda, that the condition is effective by money. And the Gemara says, Halokasha, that's not difficult. Liolam Rabbi Yehuda, really the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. V'seifa b'davar she'eno shel mamon. The seifa simply means that if it's not a monetary issue, that kind of condition against the Torah is not fulfilled. And the Gemara continues, but still, Ema Seifa, but look at the end of the Mishnah, look at the next lines of the Mishnah. It says, Kol tanai sheyesh bo maisa b'tchilaso, to know batal. Any condition, if the maisa is mentioned first, that condition is nullified. Man shamad le de'islei hosvara, who's the one who holds of that? That's not Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Meir. That follows Rabbi Meir. The Tanis will learn in a Braisa, Abba Chalafta, Ish Kfar Chananya, Amar Mishum Rabbi Meir, Abba Chalafta, from Kfar Chananya, he says in the name of Rabbi Meir, Tanai Kodem Lamaisa Hareza Tanai. If the Tanai is mentioned before the action, that's a good condition. Maisa Kodem LaTanai, Eino Tanai. But if the action is before the Tanai, that is not a good condition. That's Mishum Rabbi Meir. So it seems to be Rabbi Meir's opinion. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather Kula Rabbi Meir. He really, the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, meaning the whole Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir that Masnal Mashakasa B'Torah is not a good condition. And so then the question is, why can a Shomer Chinam make a condition not to take an oath? Why can a Shoel make a condition not to pay? And the answer to that is, Vishani Hocha, it's different over here, to Meikara Lo Shibed Nafshe, because originally he's not being Meshabed himself, he's removing an obligation that actually is going to be effective, even according to Rabbi Meir. Rashi over here explains Afilu Tema seems to be a slightly different gear so that Rashi has, but you can even say it's Rabbi Meir, meaning Reisha de Katani Masna Shomer Chinam Li Pater Mishvua. In the beginning of the Mishnah, where it says, for example, that a Shomer Chinam can make a Tanai to be exempt from an oath, Rabbi Meir, that is Rabbi Meir. V'hai lav masnal mashakasa b'torah, but that's not considered masnal mashakasa b'torah. Ela sha'amar lo, because here what he's just saying to him is, I efshi lios shomer shalcha, I cannot be your shomer, ela b'kach, unless we have these conditions. V'shomer lo nachis l'shmira ad demashach lebehema, a shomer does not become obligated in shmira until he pulls the animal and makes a kinyan. V'hai ki mashach, and this person, when he's doing the kinyan, when he's doing the pulling of the animal, kvar piresh, he's already explained, al-manas she'en lo olav shua, that it's on condition that there's no oath. V'lo shibed nafshe leireid b'torah shomrin elo l'mixas, and therefore he's only obligating himself to be a shomer partially in terms of the laws of shmira. U'lamasha yard, whatever he is taking upon himself, he takes upon himself, and nothing more. That is effective even according to Rabbi Meir. Avol hamekadesh es isha, but for example, the the other kind of case where it's not effective. Let's say a person is mekadesh a woman. When he says, you are mekudeshes to me, that's a kiddushin. And when he then says that it's on condition that I don't have these obligations, that is considered masnal mashakasa b'torah. Why? Because there's no such thing as a marriage that's halfway. Once the kiddushin takes effect, it takes effect fully. That's why that's considered masnal mashakasa b'torah. So that's the distinction between the case of our Mishnah and the case, let's say, by kiddushin. And the Gemara continues, Tana was taught, Umasna Shomer Sachar Lios Keshoel. A Shomer Sachar is allowed to make a condition that he wants to be like a Shoel, which essentially means the Shomer Sachar is taking on extra obligations. And so the Gemara says to that, B'mai, so how is that possible? How is he taking upon himself extra? B'devarim, is it just with words? Rashi says, B'devarim B'tzmiya. The Gemara is asking this as a question. It can't be that the words alone give the Shomer Sachar a greater level of obligation. And the Gemara answers, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, B'shakanu miyado, it's not just words, but they actually made a kinyan to this effect. And that's how the Shomer Sachar took this upon himself. For Rabbi Yochanan, Amar, but Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu tema b'shalo kanu miyado. You can even say that this is effective without a kinyan, because Bahahi hanod the konofik leikala the inish mehem nehu. He gets a certain benefit that now word goes out that he's a trustworthy person. He's a Shomer Sachar taking upon himself the responsibility of a shoel. That's a benefit to him. So through that benefit, he doesn't even need to do a formal kinyan. It's that benefit alone that Gomer Mashab and Nafshi, that he fully commits himself and he obligates himself at this level, and it's effective just based on that. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'chol she'efshar lo l'kaymo v'sofa v'chulu." Any kind of tanai that's possible to be fulfilled, that's a good tanai. And the Gemara says, "Amar Rav Tavla, Amar Rav." Rav Tavla says that Rav says, "Zu divrei Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema." Our Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. Rashi says, "Zu divrei Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema." The katani de'efshar l'kiyume. It says it has to be a condition that's possible to fulfill. Ha'i efshar l'kiyume to no batal. But if it's an impossible condition to fulfill, that kind of condition is nullified. That's the opinion in our Mishnah. Avol but the Chachamim say they disagree. Even though it's impossible to fulfill such a condition, but that condition was made at the outset to know kaim that is an effective condition. And the Gemara says, Detanya, as we learned in a Braisa, let's say a person says, this is your get on the condition that you go up to the heavens. On the condition you go to the depths. On the condition that you swallow a reed of 100 amos. On condition that you cross the Yam HaGadol, the great sea, with your feet. All of those are impossible to fulfill. Neskayim hatanai. So we say that if the condition is fulfilled, which of course it won't be, harez the get, then it is a good get. But lo neskayim hatanai. But if the condition is not fulfilled, no get, it's not a good get. Meaning the Chachamim say that the condition is a good condition, and if you can't fulfill that condition, the get will not be an effective get. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says no, kazeh get. It is always considered a get in this situation. The tanai is nothing. When you make an impossible condition, we discount the tanai entirely, and we say that the divorce, the get, is going to be effective. Klal Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says a rule, kol she'yefshar lo l'kaymo b'sofo, anything that's impossible to fulfill at the end, v'hisna olav mitchilaso, and he made such a tanai at the beginning, einu ela kemafliga, that just means kemafliga, as Rashi here says, kemafliga b'devarim, she'in belibo l'shum tanai. What it means is he's not really thinking seriously about the condition, ela l'haknita bi'alma, it's just a kind of way that he's trying to anger her, merachka, he's trying to distance her, he's pushing her off with words. That's what it means, mafliga b'devarim or mafliga v'chasher. And so in such a situation, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says we discount the tanai entirely, and we say that the get is kosher. We say that it's an effective divorce. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav. Rav Nachman says that Rav says halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema, and we say that the tanai is nothing. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says masnisa nami deka. Our Mishnah proves this as well. Now Rashi says masnisa nami deka destamalon Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema, meaning it seems to be that the Mishnah is following, even though it's unattributed, it seems to be following Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. The katani, because it says in the Mishnah, kol she'efshar lo l'kaymo b'sof, if it's possible to fulfill it at the end, v'hisna olav mitchilaso, and he made such a tanai at the outset, to know kaim, then it's an effective tanai. Ha'efshar lo l'kaymo, it sounds like if it's impossible to fulfill, to know batal, the condition is nullified. Shmami no, and the Gemara says indeed we see from this that the Mishnah is following Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. Hadron aloch hasocher sapoalim, we will return to you, parak hasocher sapoalim, This is the end of the 7th parak of Meseches Bava Metzia. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the 8th parak of Meseches Bava Metzia. And the parak begins with the Mishnah, Hashoel asapar, if somebody borrows a cow, v'shoal ba'alai ima, and he borrows the owner with it, meaning to say the owner is going to do some work for him, o sachar ba'alai ima, or together with borrowing the cow, he hires the owner together with the borrowing of the cow, or shal habaylam o sachron, let's say he borrows the owners, so to speak, or hires the owners, v'achar kach shal asapara, and after that he borrows the cow. In all of these cases, v'meis, if the animal then dies, if the cow dies, potter, he's going to be exempt. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, im ba'olav imo lo yeshalim, if the owner is with him, he does not pay, meaning to say, since at the time of the borrowing of the cow, either at exactly that time or preceding that, he had the owner working for him, whether he was being hired for wages or whether the owner was just volunteering. In either case, since the owner is working with him, therefore he's exempt from what happens to the cow. Let's say the cow dies, let's say there's some kind of onus, some kind of accident. And Rashi explains, Hachi Garsinan Hashol Asapar Vishal Bola Ima, O Sachar Bola Ima. Again, he borrows the cow and borrows the owner with it, or hires the owner with it. Lo Garsinan Schiros Pekula Masnis. And Rashi says, there is no renting in the Mishnah Gabe Para by the cow. We're not renting the cow in this Mishnah, we're only borrowing the cow in the Mishnah. Ela Gabe Bailam. We only talk about renting or hiring, that's talking about the owners. You're either borrowing, so to speak, the owner, or you're hiring the owner. Dashminan Hechad de Para She'ula, what the Mishnah is saying is that if the cow is borrowed, as long as the owner is working together with the borrower in his work, whether he is borrowing him, so to speak, or whether he's hiring this owner, we call that the owner is with him, and then we say there's an exemption. Let's say by a rented cow, the Mishnah is not teaching us anything about being exempt if you're working together with the owner, but we do learn that out from the Brisa, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tzadi Dalid Amid Beis.